And I wanted to ask you a quick question just
Hmm.
because I forgot to research how much time to budget, and I do have a hard out at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
So an hour roughly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. All right, let's do this then. Let's go. Asteroid of fear.
Okay.
Let's see. I'll start off with a little introduction. I'll get a little bit of your kind of growing up, how that shaped what you
Mhm.
do, and then we'll talk about it because I had an interesting conversation with yesterday from an addiction background in that the lady said she was going to her group meetings and this and that, the other, and she was all happy, and the husband was like, "Well, I'm happy for you, but I don't have anyone, you
Yeah.
know?" And
Yeah. Yeah.
so once he kind of started, and so it was really about this healing as a family,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
so
That's so crucial to the addiction world. Yeah.
yeah, and I'd never really heard that, but it made so much sense in that
Mm.
you can see how easy it is for why maybe some relationships don't survive it.
Yep.
And then there's always this uh what do you want to call it? Like a resentment type of a thing. And I
Mm.
know because my aunt and my two aunts, one is like an addict and one
Mm.
is in recovery of 19 years, but the kind of disdain versus the concern and empathy,
Mm.
um, you know, is not very supportive. And when you
Mm.
talk about kind of being on that same wavelength as it relates to healing as a family, um, because, while other people may not see that, they're contributors as well, because your
Absolutely.
your addiction is you're looking for solutions, and that's the solution. And
Yeah.
so even if people didn't necessarily give it to you, force you to take it, guaranteed, be it behavior of a way they made you feel, something like that
Yeah.
is what caused you to reach for that solution.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they're not completely negligent in it. And so then it makes sense too that when it comes to the healing part, that you do it in conjunction with the people that you're going to continue to be around.
Well, the people that are members of the dance
Yes,
that
that's what she said. The
yeah.
dance. She goes,
Yeah.
goes, if you want to get back on the dance floor, you need everybody to get back on the dance floor.
Yep. I totally
So
agree with
yeah, so
Yeah.
man, yeah, so we're like a two for two here in this world. But all right, let's get it started. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast. And today we have Angela Caldwell, and we're gonna talk about family, and it takes a tribe to raise a family. And many of you guys, if you're unfamiliar with my story, my wife and I have been together for 19 years. I have two stepdaughters. They're 21 and 22. We've been together since they were 2 and 3. Me and the husband are good friends, the ex-husband. And we there's so many stories about, and people always thought it was weird 18 years ago, 19 years ago. Like, I can't believe you're friends with him and blah, 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 and this and that, the other. And I was like, but it takes a tribe. I mean, we paid child support, but it's like if he couldn't get something, if the grandparents, then or it took us all. And we didn't do like court ordered rules. We didn't do any of that. It was like, hey, if we had 3 weeks off and we could have them for 3 weeks, then we did. And people thought we were batshit crazy 18, 19 years ago, couldn't understand it. But I think when you look at how the kids have turned out, you understand that, you know, because my thing was, when they got divorced, it was like the kids were never going to be this thing that they fought over. Um, they were not going to be the pawns of two adults not getting together and this thing of like, maybe they don't necessarily want them, but they just don't want the other person to have them because
Mhm.
it's about control.
Mhm.
And I was like, I told my wife, I was like, "Yeah, we're not doing that." And we're gonna figure it out. Like he's always gonna be their dad. I'm this other person, but it's gonna take us all. And maybe what he can't provide for them, be it emotionally, physically, spiritually, maybe I can. And so in a way, it kind of acts to multiply what the amount of love the kids can receive as opposed to um, this back and forth bitterness shit and pinning parents against each other.
Mhm. I love
So,
that. I love
but
that. What a story.
yeah, so how did you get into this? Did you know from a child this is what you wanted to do, or how did your childhood shape that? Where'd you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Yeah, yeah. So, I actually I have a unique and interesting childhood. I like talking about my childhood. I'm sure I went through all of the typical. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a teacher. I think I wanted to be a flight attendant at some point. But
Mhm.
but I knew that I was called to work with families. I didn't know what capacity, of course. I didn't know what my options were. But I grew up in El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
So I right on the border, and because of
I'm
that,
in
this
Tyler, Texas, so
Oh, yeah. Okay, Tyler. Sure, sure. Well, then you would
the
know.
the opposite end when we would go to Las Cruces for the Bataan Death March, you leave at 9 p.m. and at 8 p.m. you're just getting to El Paso.
Exactly. Well, people underestimate how big Texas is.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were those of us growing up in a border town. This is a hugely bicultural town. I was massively influenced by Mexican culture.
Hmm.
So it's the opposite of what you see in other towns around the country where most El Pasoans are coming from Mexico. It's a heavily Hispanic culture, and most of my friends were Mexican or Mexican American.
I'm Mexican, live in a multi-generational household. It's my mom, me, my wife, my cousin whose mom could not care for him, and then my daughter who's 11. So 5 generations.
So that's familiar to me. And that's what's I think unique about my childhood is those are the houses that I know, as opposed to I think what I have come to discover is the more typical American experience is not that, right?
Right.
Is more the home is for the nuclear family, grandparents live nearby or across the country,
Or in a
for
nursing home,
or a nursing
which
home.
my grandparents, they both were. We lived with the grandparents, like my mom was married before, and then we lived with my grandparents until they passed. And then it's like grandfather passed, mom moved back, and then grandma passed. But it's always been some form
Mhm,
of we don't send them to nursing homes.
mhm,
We
mhm.
don't do any of that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a culture very much that takes care of their own very, very beautifully, and very intensely
Yeah.
and with a lot of heat.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of the culture that I was most familiar with growing up. And so when
Did that
I
influence why you wanted to work with families?
100% because I left that. So I went off to college. I came to California. I set up shop in California. I set up a life in California. Traveled, to see. My extended family was in Tennessee, so I had spent a
Okay.
lot of time in Tennessee. Visiting friends in Wisconsin, visiting friends in New York, and so getting to see how other families operate. Um, I I it sort of had this other influence for sort of the next chapter of my life was all about the more traditional American family household.
Okay.
And I adapted and I thought, okay, this is cool. So, you have like these big homes for just a handful of people, I guess. Okay. And there's the dining room table is actually kind of small. There's only four people at it.
Well,
And
no,
okay.
you have two. You have one that you eat at and one that you don't eat at in
That's so
another
right.
room.
That's so right. And what happened, I'll, skip a few years here and there. I end up in psychology school for graduate school. And I'm studying, just like everybody, all of us are studying the Freudian influences and the Jungian influence and this idea of the power of one-on-one therapy. And I am drinking the Kool-Aid and I'm loving it and I can't wait to do this work. And all of my, classmates who become my colleagues, we kind of jump into this work and we are intensely examining the intestines of your childhood, and it's very one-on-one, and I'm doing pretty good work, I thought. And the more I was doing this one-on-one work, I was noticing where my colleagues were probably, it seems like they were getting fed and fulfilled. I was hungry. I was hungry because I was, number one, I was frustrated that I was only getting one person's side of the story because that isn't the house that I grew up in,
Right.
right? Um, and number two, the change that I would feel like I could affect in the session, it didn't seem like it would translate, right? So then they
Right.
would come back after a month or come back after a few months and in my head I kept thinking like, well, if I could just get your family in here, then I could talk to everybody at the same time. When I would go home for, say holidays or birthdays or something to visit, I started noticing an emotional difference. And when I was home, I felt so fulfilled and there were so many people around. And I know this is going to sound strange, Richard, but when I was home, it was messy. And that was so comforting to
Hmm.
me that it was so messy, that it wasn't what I had come to learn about this sort of more traditional American, more one-on-one therapy environment that was sterile and clean. And I say this, and now you say this, and oh, you said the wrong word. Oh, and now we have an apology process, and now we have a forgiveness process, and it's by the book, and it's step by step. And I felt so straitjacketed in that.
Mhm.
And I realized that what I was feeling is the difference between what's practical and what's impractical, and
Yeah.
that kind of conversation and that way of talking and moving in the world does not translate to real life when somebody is mad at somebody else because they didn't get invited and that one is saying don't tell my brother but and this
Yeah.
one is holding secrets and that one's and there's in real life
Well, it
the
produces muted emotions. Like if you're doing the exchange, like on the couch and you're talking to someone, it's almost like a call and response, but your because of the setting, your emotions are almost muted to you're allowed to feel the disappointment or the anger at what the person just said, but you're almost required to hold it in, which is not true.
mm-hmm.
Versus when I hear you describing messy, it's more organic. Maybe the therapy, the conversation is more organic, and with that you're going to get more truth, and with more truth equals more accuracy and clarity. With more accuracy and clarity, then we can properly address the issue and come up with a solution.
You said it better than I could say it. I might add one piece to it. There's a piece here. It's sort of hidden in family dynamics
Hmm.
of resilience building because by definition, when you have 10 people around the table
Hmm.
and this one's upset with that one and this one's telling jokes here and that one's teasing that one and that one can't hear anything because he's losing his hearing and he's yelling at everyone to talk loud, right? So when you have this kind of like bustling table, what all of us do, we just don't realize we're doing it, is we do a triage and we decide
Hmm.
what we prioritize, what is the most important thing for me to listen to, what is the most um, on fire problem that needs my attention. And I think what happens then sort of naturally is we learn how to properly size problems. This is a small problem, this is a medium problem, this is a big problem. In the one-on-one world, every problem is enormous. And
Yeah.
it actually has the opposite effect because now what you're doing is in my opinion, it runs the risk of taking resilience away from the client because now every problem is enormous and we have to examine it for weeks and weeks and weeks and we have to know exactly what you feel at every second all the time, as opposed to how it works practically in families where you actually have permission to say it's a small problem and you know what, I'm not even going to solve it. I'm not
You
even
know
going to.
what? Not even that though. You think about it, like my mental health lately has been meh, and I'm addressing it. But the thing is it's your the problems are not necessarily when I'm alone. They're the reaction around people is what the problem is, and so kind of addressing it in that setting almost makes more sense
Yeah, yeah, well
around
that
the people that trigger you, because it's like if I'm sitting with you one on one, I don't have any problems when I'm one on one in my room and I'm alone and I'm isolated. That's where
yeah.
I feel the most
The other
comfortable.
thing, the other thing is you're going to tell me how well you behaved and how it was everyone else that was misbehaving and how you had
Yeah,
all the right answers and I'm not going to believe you and I'm going to have a much more accurate understanding of what your family dynamics are if I can actually see them myself in my
yeah.
room. I can induce conflicts. I mean, the truth is I don't even have to induce conflict. The family brings it. Um, you know, the other thing that I really love about family therapy is nobody can lie. because, if the brother says that, this thing happened and then I said, then the whole family says, you didn't say that. You didn't say that.
Yeah.
You can't really lie. Or, there's a nice consensus about what actually happened that day. And so I can get down and dirty into the dynamics and try to heal some conflict.
Yeah, it's so um how does that relate to um so we've kind of established this it takes a village type of thing, what you were feeling, what you were noticing, and um how did you when did you make the decision and how did you decide, or did you have to do any additional schooling training? How did you get into the family arena?
Yeah. Luckily, no. So I actually went to a family counseling graduate program. There was
Okay.
the emphasis was on family counseling. I did get extra training because I'm ridiculous and I want to be a student as long as possible. So
Yeah.
I did take a lot of extra classes. I love those though. The transition happened and it was one of those things that you don't know it's a transition until after the fact. So now I can sit here now and look back and go,
Yeah.
oh, I see what I did there. I was, as you get to know me, you'll find out I've got a little anger. I was angry. I was angry with my field. I was angry about assumptions that were being made, generalizations like, well, people are like this, and people think like this, and people feel like this. Um, I was particularly angry at how narrow the American lens was. So here I was coming from a culture that no one else came from. So I was
Right.
the outspoken classmate in class going, well, that's not how they do it in Mexico. Well, that would never work in a Mexican family. Well, and so I was kind of, because that had been my exposure growing up. I think that I got so lucky, Richard. The other thing I had growing up is this fortunate time with my family. We got to travel, and so we actually spent a lot of time in the Mediterranean countries. So I spent
Okay.
a lot of time in Greece and Italy, and those family cultures are much more. Well,
Different.
now that I'm saying that, I'm realizing they're Latin cultures, so they're much more like the Mexican cultures that I was familiar
I
with.
always think like Mexican, Italian, very
Yeah,
similar
yeah,
with
yeah.
family, just tacos versus pizza. But I traveled, I had my 19th birthday in Japan. I was in the Navy. And so, going through all that at a young age, kind of similarly, when I went back to school and I was considering going to medical school, and decided not to after taking healthcare law because you realize how tied your hands are. But I was a healthcare manager before I got laid off in 2020. And, there's these 15, 20-minute time slots. And my job is to manage all that and make sure the doctors abide and blah, 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 blah. But I've known from a very young age with the travel and what you just mentioned that I was told I could never be the kind of doctor I'd want to be because that requires listening, and they don't give you enough time to listen because when you start talking about these other cultures, how their dynamics are, how they view things, that needs to be taken into account when you're prescribing a healing plan for whatever it is, whether it's a because
100%.
there's beliefs that go into that, whether even if it's a Western style medication, symptomatic treatment that you're going to do, you have to understand that these cultures have other beliefs, spiritual beliefs, and different things that whether include, prohibit, or, alter how they may feel about the treatment, whether they believe or not the treatment will work. And that goes into regular medicine as well as any sort of counseling.
Yeah, yeah. And no, yeah, you're 100% right. And so I was influenced by these cultures that were it's funny. The more exposure I got to the way other countries and other nationalities and cultures were doing family, the more I was coming to this conclusion, and I know it's a controversial thing for me to say, but I was coming to the conclusion that Americans are doing family wrong. We're
Yeah,
doing it. We
I
are
agree.
in this isolationist, tiny groups. We are, if you look up, really, your listeners, they should Google this. Try this exercise. If you Google child rearing or child rearing books right now, all the books that come up are parenting.
Hmm.
Think about what that is. So the suggestion, the sort of underlying assumption is that child rearing falls entirely on the shoulders of the parents. So in our world, in traditional American culture, we focus a lot on parenting, and there's parenting classes and there's parenting books, and we talk about what, how to be a better parent. And I would go to, Greece, or I'd go back home across the border and be like, well, everybody's doing the parenting. Why aren't we doing it like them? Because what I see in America and what I see in my practice, I've seen it for 20 years, is overstressed, overwhelmed, highly anxious, sometimes depressed parents. Why? Because that's ridiculous. It's impossible to put the entirety of child rearing on the shoulders of the parents. The cultures that are letting everybody else help, the tias and the tios and the grandparents and the cousins,
Hmm.
they're doing so much better. I mean, sure, they have their own sets of problems, but the parents are less stressed. They're more emotionally available to their children.
I just
They
saw an Instagram post where this guy said in Mexico, it's a third world country, but we don't have all the depressing problems. And they said, and he was talking about what you just said about this community and that everybody wasn't stressed and that there's a slower pace of life. I mean, of course, we live in a capitalist society that everything is about more and money, that we forget to slow down our pace.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a big piece of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, what influenced my work at that point in my life was kind of getting angry and kind of thinking like, God, we're doing this wrong. Why aren't we taking a page out of the book, a page out of the book of, frankly, the cultures that have been here longer than we have, that seem like they know a little bit more about how to family. And so I have been on this ridiculous crusade trying to pull this village idea into
Yeah.
American culture. Um,
So, how has that gone for you? Has that outspokenness going against the grain of what everybody else has kind of been shoving in academics? How has that fared for you? What has been the response from colleagues, professionals, and or but also the people you're helping? Are they
yeah.
understanding it?
Yeah, it's so I would say it ranges from mostly positive. Mostly I hear like, "Yes, yes, why does this have to fall on all on me?" to, "Wow, that's a nice fantasy that will never come true for me."
Hmm.
I noticed that some responses, especially for my clients and colleagues, would be trepidation. And I'll tell you what they're coming up against. There's a notion in modern psychology and family psychology that goes along with this idea that parent, child raising a child is the responsibility of the parents. Well, if that's the case, then I mean, you'll hear podcasts about this, you read blog posts about this. You need to be careful and limit your contact with your in-laws. Make sure that everyone around you knows what your rules are. Make sure that they know how much sugar your kid can have. Be
Hmm.
clear in your communication about your boundaries, 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 boundaries. Richard, if I hear boundaries one more time, I'm going to jump off a cliff. So, so there's this idea that as parents, it is our priestess kingdom. It is our world. No one else can say boo. We're going to do it our way, and everyone else has to conform to what we have decided is the right path for our children. This to me is terribly harmful to a child. It's terribly harmful to our society. It creates echo chambers and silos of parenting. The other cultures seem to have realized that, first of all, parenting should not fall all on the parents. Raising a child belongs to everyone because, hey, look, these are the kids that are going to run our countries in the future and going to make
Yeah.
decisions for us. It seems like those parents are more relaxed about other family members influencing their kids, and not just relaxed, but embracing the idea that their grandmother has a different idea about sugar, or
Yeah.
their cousin has a different idea about video games, and that's okay. As a matter of fact, the more exposure our children have to different ways that adults think, the more open-minded they can be. The more radical thinkers they can be. They can go out into a world and see a world and say, oh, well, they do it that way, and this person does it that way. Oh, you're more like my grandmother. Oh, you're more like my father. And I love that so much. And you asked the question about my clients and colleagues. I try to press that on them, that maybe we shouldn't be so rigid in our boundaries. Maybe we shouldn't say I'm the parent and it's my way or the highway. Maybe if we open our hearts to this idea of a village way of parenting, yeah, probably that means your kids are going to get exposed to parenting techniques that are not your favorite. And you know what? It's okay. It's not a
Exposure,
felony.
though, exposure is kind of, I think, the key. Um, because if if not, you know, when you were talking about it, I feel like there's this parental idea that we assume that our kid is going to latch on to this other person's idea just because it's the opposite of ours. But not realizing that the benefit could be that, everything we encounter is either a case for what we want to do more of or what we want to do less of. There's this
Right.
idea that, I mean, they could absolutely think it's a ridiculous idea that, a family member brings and be like, hey, or they could try and have all the sugar and be like, no, this didn't make me feel good. And maybe they make their own decision. But, I don't know. I talk to my daughter, my 11-year-old, a different way. And sometimes I've been truthful with her and I try to keep it age appropriate. But there are times where I hate this idea that people discount kids as, well, they're just children. We can't, no, they're little fucking people. They're going to grow up to be like you and I.
Yep.
And what we're telling them, and if we lie to them to protect them, what happened with me is my parents split when I was, I don't know how old I was, 17, 18, 19. I was in the Navy, came back, and they were split. But the not inclusion felt like I'd been lied to. Then I went back and questioned all 17 years. Well, what was true and what was not?
Yeah.
And then I had trust issues with them, and then I went off this deep end and just acted reckless and didn't care and didn't care
Sure.
about them. And so, you know, that's always been my thing is I don't want to discount that they're little people. We need to, depending on the age, but we have to be truthful too.
Well, and what how about those opportunities where if my daughter goes and spends time with her grandmother and comes back to me and says, "Well, grandma says this," which is different than what you say, instead of me, confronting my mother or putting down the hammer and saying like this, you crossed my boundary. Instead, how great is it for my daughter if I turn to her and I say, "Well, what do you think of that?" And I
Yeah.
give her a chance to grapple with that. Well, mom thinks this, but grandma thinks that. Well, honey, what do you think of that difference? Where do you go with that? And I give her a chance to expand her mind, to tell me her thoughts. I actually am quite interested in her thoughts. So I want to know how she would
Yeah.
grapple with that.
Because
Yeah.
one day they might be parents too, and their view might be, 100% my views are different from my mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
There's
it's this old Hispanic community type of thing of going, she's been in healthcare for, so I'm 49, so 39 years. I was in healthcare for the past 12 years. Same company we both worked for, where I was born, and um, they don't understand this is what I'm trying to do now. Podcast. I got some certificates. I don't want to go back into corporate healthcare because it's broken. And I
yeah,
feel like I can make more of a difference, more of an impact, have more of a reach here than I could have any office I ever occupied,
I
you
love it.
know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so it's about, for me, I still have the health and wellness because I did personal training and this and that, the other, but coming from an emergency room background and then family practice, and then having recently started therapy and looking at where am I going to go next? I stopped drinking 2 years ago. I was like, maybe I'll get a drug and alcohol counseling certificate and do that on the side along with podcasting. But as long
Just
as
work with
it's,
families. Just be sure to work with families.
yes, well, that conversation yesterday I had really kind of made that abundantly clear that, um, when something happens to one member of the family, it affects everybody because we're all in the ecosystem together.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so it kind of makes sense that you need to heal that way. But yeah, go
When,
ahead.
yeah, no, no. When we exist in daily life in a family, you do, I do, most of us do, things become rote, which is good. We get into a routine, in that routine, things have to get, the daily business of family life has to get done. We've got to get the kids to school, we've got to get
Hmm.
dinner on the table, we've got to get to work, we've got to pay the mortgage, we got to, we've got to wash the car, like they're like this, life has to get done. And what families do is they sort of it's a very cool thing. I almost wish that there was some giant who secretly has us under a microscope and is watching us move around each other in a house or an apartment where, oh, well, in order to get chicken, I need to get the blue bowl down, and you're tall enough to get the blue bowl. So your job is to get the blue bowl down, and then I'll cook the chicken, and you need to set the table because your sister's too small and she can't reach the forks. And so, and what happens is over time, it's this beautifully choreographed dance where I reach for the chicken and you get the bowl and she gets the forks and she's setting the table, and right, and it's this dance. When you understand, or let me say it this way, when we've lived long enough in that dance,
Hmm.
the good thing is that daily life, it happens. We accomplish our tasks. The bad thing is we get hypnotized into, well, this is what I do, and this is what you do, and this is what I, and we don't necessarily see that someone's suffering. And we might misattribute the cause of the suffering. Oh, you just had a bad day. Oh, you're just in a
Yeah.
bad. Oh, you're just mad because your sister got the forks instead of you, right? And what's nice about this is a weird thing to say. What's nice about a family problem? I know that's a weird way to start a
Mm.
sentence. What's nice about a family problem is it's a signal. We call it a check engine light. It's a signal
Hmm.
that hey, this dance that we've gotten into, it's actually hurting the little sister who's taller now and who can reach the forks now and is starting to feel like she doesn't matter and she has no value in
Mm.
the family. And so when people start to feel like, so let's say the little sister feels like she doesn't matter and she has no value, well, now she's going to act out and demand that she matters, and everyone's going to be like, "Gosh, what's wrong with Sarah?" Right? When what's really wrong is that this family dance that hypnotized us into daily life, it doesn't work anymore. It needs to be updated. It needs to be changed.
Hmm.
Right? And so the problem in a family, when you look at it from this beautiful family systems lens, this family dance lens, instead of saying Sarah's got a problem and needs help, you say, "Oh, your check engine light is on. Let's see what your family dance is because I wonder if it needs to be updated now that everyone's older, now that you're in your high school instead of elementary school, now that you got laid off and you're not working, now that we moved, we had to downsize to an apartment. Let's update the family dance. There's nothing wrong with Sarah. Sarah's just the check engine light that our dance isn't working anymore."
And there's a hierarchical thing too, because kind of like Sarah's taller, she can reach the forks now. Um, Hierarchical in the fact that almost roles in the dance were based on something like height and age. But then as you get older and you're capable of more, then it's like, well, why does it always have to be me that gets the forks? We're all capable. And so that can change it. But then I've just had this recent aha while we were talking, in that the dance changes too as we age, because my mom is now 60 something retiring and I'm 49 and with an 11-year-old, and um, the parents' responsibilities become different and the children start helping the parents and
Mhm.
in that too. And so it's almost like you really like need a family therapy session once a quarter, to like the same way you would change your oil,
Oh my
like
gosh,
every
Richard.
every 3 months, to go in
Yes,
and
you are.
go, hey,
Yes.
what's going on? How's everything
Amen.
going? How's the dance going? What do
Amen.
we need
Amen.
to update?
Yes, I encourage families to have regular family meetings. We had a similar to you actually. We had a situation. My father-in-law's health was suffering. He lives in Kansas, and we were able to arrange for him to move in with us for several months to get some health care out here in California. Well, he's older, and we've never had a grandparent live in our house before, and so he moves in and we set everything up and we're really excited to have our favorite grandfather in our house and this is going to be great. And we're all very naive about this. And my youngest daughter, after a couple of weeks of this, is starting to have temper tantrums at night, which was new. That hadn't happened before. And she is starting to insist on sleeping in our bed. And we're thinking like, what is, of course I go into my
Yeah.
Freudian, is this a regression? What's going on? And it was such a good example of we had this talk with her and I was like, "Hey, what's really going on here?" And she just kind of, sweet little girl, she opens up and she's like, "I don't want him to live with us." And we were like, "Oh, okay, I appreciate your honesty. What's going on?" And she was able to put 7-year-old words to, "We had a dance and now our dance doesn't work anymore." And so
Mm.
we had this sit down meeting, and it was this beautiful meeting where we all sat down and we said, "Hey, how has life changed since since he's moved in with us. And well, we can't be as loud at night anymore. And well, now in the mornings you have to take him to his appointments, and now daddy takes us to school. And now, and so even they sound so small, but it really kind of it like changes the dance, and it can be upsetting for this person, but really great for this person. And we sit down and we have these meetings to say, oh, you guys aren't feeling like we're spending enough time together anymore. Okay, let's revamp the schedule. Let's take a look at the daily life and let's see where we can get that need met in a different way, because now the dance has to change because we have an added member, an added burden to the family.
Hmm.
And that family meeting where we all kind of, I guess we sort of agreed on a new dance. And we also, it's funny too, we also
Yeah.
sort of agreed to be sort of begrudgingly agreed to some reluctance about it. And we were like, well, oh well, I guess this is
Yeah.
it. Um, those meetings happen regularly for us now. And I want all families to do that, to kind of sit down, like you said, sit down and say, hey, everybody good? How's the dance going? We're older now.
Well,
We've got,
with my business coach, it's like every at the end of every session, you go, what can we add? What can we leave the same? And what can we remove? You want to, like, if it's a tracking system, your dance has this many moves. How can we improve it by 1%? And so when you talk about, and I said, oh, quarterly meetings, a good question as the family, what do we keep? What do we add? And what do we get rid of?
love it.
What do we do more of or less of? And man, that is, yeah, that is, oh,
The family dance most certainly has to, it can't stay the same because we get older and we get taller and we have new needs and we get married and we have babies and we have parents move.
boyfriends, girlfriends,
Yeah.
and when anytime you're introducing another personality into the dance,
Hmm.
man, it is a hot mess. It's wild to think to think about that. But yeah, between yesterday and today talking to you and her, it's like some of these things are connecting for me of going. Yeah, because there was somewhere else, I don't know if it was a post or something I saw today, but just this, we're so connected more than ever, but disconnected more than ever. And actually, maybe I was reading your thing and it was about the social media
uh,
and it was this idea of if connection is the opposite of isolation. I'm an addict. Addicts tend to isolate. We don't like connecting, but it gave me this idea that we're connected more than ever. We have so much connectivity, allowing us to do this right now, but we're isolating to our phone as individuals. So even if people aren't addicts, even though we know that phones, social media have that addictive quality that an addict or whatever, it's almost like imprinting on the subconscious these addiction qualities to people, isolating individuals to them, their little world on that screen,
uh,
making us more disconnected as a world. And the result of it is the world's in chaos right now.
mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you know where I stand on that. I'm the opponent to social media. Mark Zuckerberg probably hates me. I'm totally the opponent. I can't stand it. I've hated it since it
I've
came
been
out.
off of it lately a lot more. I've been doing my post for interviews and then just posting and
Yeah,
I schedule them all on one day and then that's it. I'm not because I felt like for a few weeks, I don't know if it was the combination of podcasts I was listening to, watching information, but the disturbing things about the world, what you input,
yeah.
created a bunch of anxiety, created some
Yep.
hostility, anger, some
All the stuff that you
aggression.
all the
Me
feelings
me
you
going out
have.
into the world like a fucking rattlesnake, like rattling my tail at everybody, you know?
Yes, 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 absolutely. Um, you're making me really want to unpack this word connection. I have to tell you, I'm so tired of hearing that that's the upside of social media,
Yeah.
connected. And I think, like you just said, I agree. No, we're not. We're not more connected. So maybe we're using the wrong word
We have
because
the opportunity for connection is greater than ever,
yeah,
allowing me in Texas and you in California to host this to the entire world should they choose to listen.
yeah,
But
yeah,
our in person, I describe it. I'm 49. I used to have to go up and ask a girl for her phone number or hit the dance floor uncomfortably if I wanted a chance at this girl,
I
you
remember those
know?
days. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you had to be on the opposite end of, hey, get off me. No, I don't want to dance with you,
There,
but
well, and there was sort of that you've heard this term trauma bonding. This is
Yeah.
not
Oh yeah.
it's not a good thing, right? You're not supposed to do that. But if you kind of let me give you a spin off of that idea. Um, let's take your example. You want a girl's phone number. We had to walk up to her, right? And there had
Mm-hmm.
to be an awkward moment. And if she rejected you, then that was awkward. And if she accepted, it was still awkward. Like, okay, thanks. So what do you do now? Do you walk away? Right. So, okay.
Yeah.
And where I'm going with this is in that just those microseconds of I'm going to use the word connection, right?
Yeah.
This encounter that you have with this stranger, because you both had shared an awkwardness, or in my field, we would say you both secreted cortisol and had an
A
anxiety,
trauma.
right? A trauma, right? You both had this. Now you walk away, you're sort of connected now, right? Like, oh,
Oh,
we did that thing, right? Now, please, listeners, this is not trauma bonding. Don't trauma bond. That's a bad. Like, no, no,
yeah.
no. But it's the same idea that when we're using this word connection, I love that you were saying that we're connected, but are we connected? Are we more isolated?
Yeah.
When you are interacting with someone over social media, that is not a connection. All you're doing is reading information about someone.
Yeah.
There's too much room to insert all your own projections and all your own fears and all your own ideas,
Assumptions.
assumptions. How much room is there in that bar when you walk up to that girl? There's not very much room there, right? You're
Hopefully not much if she's attractive.
right. Right. So you have each other's body language and voice and
Yeah.
words that you're saying, and there's an exchange of energy right there.
Yeah,
And
even a feeling of when I mean, because I do Uber, and when I go places and have conversations with strangers, I've had some impactful conversations in the middle of a vitamin shop aisle before, and it's an energy. Whether it comes through a hello, a this, a that, or the other, but you notice right away, and you can sit and have a deep conversation. I met a guy at a concert and we had this little 10-minute interaction. I ended up interviewing him on my podcast. He makes handcrafted tobacco pipes, but
cool.
it was over this shirt, be authentic, they'll adjust. But it was like we connected so fast and we got like almost a life story that says, I want to be interviewed and I want to interview you because we had this similarity of like, I decided when I got laid off, I wanted to be a better father, husband. I'm not going back to corporate. He was doing Verizon stuff. His wife was in the medical field going, I can't raise a kid alone. You're working too much. Everybody around you's dying of heart attacks. He took a chance on being a pipe maker and now he gets to stay at home, be the dad, make his pipes, whatever. And the same way I get to podcast Uber, I get to be the father and husband, take my daughter to school every day and stuff like that.
How
And
cool is that?
so when you have that connection, it was 10 or 15 minutes, but since then, now I go and I seen him at other concerts. We go to shows and we meet up and it's
Cool is
wild.
that? I love
Yeah.
that. How cool is that? Yeah, yeah. And that ability to endure
Yeah.
the social anxiety of that used to be just a way of life. Now it's a diagnosis. It used to be a way
Oh,
of life that you would be nervous around people, right? There's this cool idea in neuroscience when they have like gone in and looked at the different these neural substrates that govern our social behavior, that actually humans are proximity seeking creatures,
hmm.
which means humans very naturally want to be nearby each other. Now, I'm going to suck all the romance out of this idea and tell you the reason why is because there's safety in numbers and there's about 80 different species that want to eat us,
Yeah.
right? So that's why. But if you think about that, I mean, look at how cool nature's design is. That in order for us to survive as a species, we have to be close to each other. And in order to be close to each other, and I mean like in person in the world, like
Yeah.
nearby one, we have to get along. So it's actually built in, it's naturally programmed in our neural substrates to be kind of cool to each other.
Hmm.
And online, we don't have that because there are no bears and tigers online, right? And so out in the world, when we are moving around in the world, we've adapted and evolved in such a way that we know that we want to be nearby each other. I guess, except for the hermits, but most of us form
Yeah.
neighborhoods and communities and societies to live by each other. And when you think about your neighbors, by and large, and of course there's some exceptions, but by and large, we want to be cool to each other. We want to be nice to each other. And so, in person exchanges and encounters, if you counted the number of encounters you're going to have today, I bet you 99, if not 100% of them will be positive. Online, I don't know if I can say that.
No, the only time people come together is to gang up on other people online.
Right.
That's when you see the community. But there, it made me think of this thing of we were told like it's kind of you say humans want to be together, that like if you're walking down the mall that you tend to get closer together even if you're not trying, that you
Right.
almost collide into the person you're walking next to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my issue is, given my behaviors and afflictions and growing up as an only child, is I'm so comfortable being alone that I kind of need it,
Mm-hmm.
but when I start spiraling a bit, I always say like I need to reach out much quicker than I do
Mm-hmm.
because I need to break the isolation with connection. And it's so stupid because I always feel better when I do.
Well, but
Get
look at the choice you made for your lifestyle, though. Like you're an only child, you're accustomed to being alone, but you didn't choose to live alone. You're in a family. You have a
yeah,
relationship with the ex-husband. I mean, this is you found yourself a community. You found yourself a group of humans to coexist with.
yeah, I never really thought about it that way. But you know that the point of this is to get that perspective and to get these kind of bigger views. But what so the people you've worked with, what kind of in families, what so studying cultures that do more family and
Yeah.
now going into this field and having helped some families, what are some of the benefits you've noticed within
Mm.
the family units? Do they live longer? Is there more sense of this? You know, like Denmark has the happiest place because the way they are socially and they let
Mhm.
people off when they have babies and stuff like that community.
Yeah.
What have you noticed with the people you helped, how their families have changed for the better? What kind of positive things?
Gosh, you caught my attention with do they live longer? Now I want to run a survey with my
Yeah.
family.
Well,
Do they
that's
live?
interesting, because people are moving out of the US not because of Donald Trump and whatever. It's because peop we have the best healthcare, but we don't live the longest. People in other countries live longer due to cultural factors, family,
Yeah.
this connection. And so some people, retirees, are choosing to move to other countries to live longer. And so that's kind of why I wonder that.
It's a great question. Yeah. So next time you have me on, I'm going to have an answer to that because now I want to survey my clients.
Well, because that
Um,
can be a selling point too for your program or
yeah,
encouraging people is, hey, you live longer.
yeah, yeah. Well, what I can tell you is that life expectancy is longer for people for, let's see, what we do have this research. What is it? Life expectancy is longer for married couples.
Men, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah, men's for married men. So there's got to be some data there. I'm going to look for it now.
Hmm.
But I would say the benefits that I see. Okay, so this is kind of an unusual, maybe no, I should say it's a surprising benefit for your listeners. One benefit that I see is that the problem that the family is bringing to therapy and the reason they're presenting for therapy in the first place may or may not get addressed, but the fact of being in the therapy makes things better.
Hmm.
And there's something to that. And I think all of my families will give you a different answer. My guesses would be, well, it's a devoted time for us to talk about each other as a family, to really
Yeah.
talk about what's going on here. There, this is so appropriate to what we're talking about. There's no devices. There's no interruptions.
Hmm.
There's no, so we have each other's full attention for this hour, right? That and
Yeah.
I am as a family member made to feel important because my family members are looking at me when I'm talking and they're responding to what I have to say. Um, I think there's also this phenomenon of a holding environment. Like, okay, this problem that we're struggling with, it's here. It belongs in this room. And when we leave this room, we can, in a way, kind of leave it here, knowing that we're going to come back and we're going to keep working on this. So we don't have to bring it with us in the car. We don't have to bring
Hmm.
it with us on, in the living room. So that's probably the most surprising benefit is even just even if I almost wonder, like, even if we never talked about the problem, would the family do better, feel better, change their dance just by the mere fact of having weekly family meetings, like you said, quarterly
Hmm.
meetings, right? That's probably the first one. The second benefit and is I have this thing that I say. This is not a selling point, but I joke about myself. I say, what I sell here at this store is uncomfortable and painful conversations. So that's what you're paying me for. I hope it's worth it. But I would say that that's the other benefit is that in my room, we talk about the things that we don't talk about. We say the things
Yeah.
that we don't say that have been left unsaid. We address the pain that has been bubbling in this family for how many years. In my room, we actually talk about the untalkable. And I think there is a relief and a release that comes with that. And even if it's oh, finally, we're talking about this, families feel better.
And
It just,
there's a confidence in learning to talk about hard things because that's not easy either. But I know you're pressed for time. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I would have?
oh my gosh, Richard, we would need 3 weeks together for that. We'll do
Oh
we'll
man.
do it again sometime. No, I really appreciate I actually I've listened to a couple of your episodes. I really love your podcast.
Well, thank you.
I hope your listeners know what a good job you do. But I would say this, and maybe I could leave you with this. I'm on a mission here. I'm on a mission to build messy dinner tables. I want there to be dinner tables all over this country. I want us to sit and have dinner together because
With no devices.
no devices, good Lord, no devices, because the dinner table is where we talk, it's where we connect, it's where we argue, it's where we resolve conflict, it's where we practice, it's and rehearse, it's where we opine, it's where we debate, it's where we learn, it's where it is such a sacred place. I want that to be the new church. Dinner tables, dinner tables, dinner tables all over the country.
Man, that is awesome. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna echo that and ditto that in some of mine because, part of me embarking on this journey was to be a better father, better husband, be a better contributor to the world and life and serve however I can, given whatever gifts I got. And but I agree. I think family is important. Obviously, I live with multi-generational and I would like to see family dinner time back and I really hope that more therapists between this conversation and the one I had yesterday, there's some really good information about healing as a family, everybody getting back on the dance floor. And I think that's the way we save this world because the kinder we are to each other as a family, the kinder we are to each other in society. And we're just in this state where things that don't matter as much as we make them out to be have divided us all the way to the family unit. And we need to get over that because you know what? Family, we're all we got,
That's right.
And none of this other stuff that we let divide us is going to matter when you're dying or on your deathbed. You're going to want those relationships, that love and to be loved of those you spent all this time about. And but why wait till then when we can repair it now and have good interactions daily? And that's what I'm working towards. And so thank you
Amen.
for your time.
Thank
And
you for having me. This was fun.
I leave all the listeners with go out and be the person that you would want to meet. And I can tell you, you and Jennifer yesterday, I've met two great people that have given me a great perspective, and I'm sure the listeners will enjoy it. And I'm excited to know that you guys are out there making the world a better place. And I hope I can be a part of that too.
Likewise, Richard. Thanks for having me.
All right. See ya.
All right. Bye bye.
Let go.